Man, out of all the preseason takes that I have made, I am so happy that I picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten. I thought that Michigan, while taking a huge step back, would be a near elite team this year. They're 1-1, got blown out on their own home field, 31-12. The game wasn't close. The coaching staff looked bad. They have major issues to work through, and as of now, I would not pick them to reach the college football playoff. Florida State, I thought, would dominate the ACC and win it. And, well, they're 0-2, and they got dominated by Boston College on their own home field in Week 1 and lost to a Georgia Tech team who just lost to Kyle McCord in Syracuse, though I think Kyle McCord is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation right now. I thought Notre Dame would go undefeated at one point in the and reach the college football playoff, though that was after Week 0, after Week 1. And in the preseason, I thought they would go 11-1 and reach the playoff. Well, losing to Northern Illinois indicates that you're probably not beating USC. You're probably not beating Louisville. I mean, Florida State and Notre Dame may be the battle for the Duke's Mayo Bowl at this point. I thought that Oregon would have an elite O-line. Insert explosion. That's not happening. That O-line is horrible. Ohio State will eat them up. We could go on and on and on about all the preseason takes that I have had that have gone wrong. And when you make as many preseason takes and predictions as I do, because I do record predictions for all the conferences, I even made a list this season of like the top 50, top 25 for sure players at every position. When you make that many predictions, you're bound to have many things wrong. But I've also had some things right this year. Last year, for example, I predicted Michigan to win it all. They did 15-0. I predicted that Ohio State would go 11-1, beating everyone but Michigan. I predicted that Washington would win the Pac-12 and reach the college football playoff. And I'm pretty confident after watching this game. It's just Ohio State pounding Western Michigan. I know, 56-0. But the way that they did it, how they surgically dismantled the Western Michigan team that played Wisconsin tightly. And I don't think Wisconsin is some bum team. They're not great, but they're not awful. I think they're going to be better and turn out to be better than they were last year. To do that gives me a lot of confidence that this is the best team in the Big Ten. They played so much better, like night and day different than they did in Week 1 against Akron. I was very critical of Ohio State's performance in Week 1 against Akron, and I think rightfully so. They looked rough in that first half. They did. They looked rough against an Akron team who is probably not good. In this game, they looked elite. They looked like one of the best teams in the country. They passed for over 10 yards per carry. They ran for 7 yards per carry. They put up nearly 300 rushing yards and passed for over 400. They rotated everyone, and they were as dominant as could be. The only team in this conference who I think is capable of beating this team through 2 weeks, could be a bit of an overreaction, is maybe Penn State. And James Franklin has an Ohio State problem, and Ohio State looks way better than Penn State right now. Ryan Day has built a juggernaut. Before we get into the rest of this content, and I show you some statistics and just explain to you, you probably already know, but for some who didn't watch this game, explain how dominant Ohio State's performance was and some more specific takeaways that I have, I want you to like the video, click that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts. Type them down in the comment section below so that we can have a conversation and you can express your reaction to this game, your reaction to 2 weeks of Big Ten football teams playing. Again, like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Liking the video helps us get into the algorithm, and subscribing helps us grow our channel and diehard followers. Hitting that notification bell allows you to get notified when I release more college football content. Also, join my Discord server for college football via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you very much. And if you also want to support this channel in an extra way, check out the Patreon page or merchandise store via the links in the description or in the pinned comment where the Discord server link is. But 56-0, The score was 35-0 at the half. Ohio State was only 3 of 10 on third down, and they put up these numbers. They were 2 of 2 on fourth down. Donovan Jackson, from what I saw, still wasn't in the game, so this team isn't quite to their ceiling. And are they perfect? No. I mean, Texas and Georgia right now have better resumes. I would still say that Georgia is a better team. Perhaps, big perhaps here, because I don't have much evidence to support this, a much better team. But that's Georgia. Table it. They're not even going to match up for several more months. And given that Ohio State, they didn't return a quarterback like Georgia did. So keeping that in mind, I do think Ohio State probably has more room for growth compared to Georgia, which means they can catch up to and perhaps surpass Georgia. I mean, keep in mind they're playing, from what I saw, and I'm pretty confident they played without Donovan Jackson, and their offensive line looked better. Howard didn't take a single sack. He was 18 of 26 for 292, 11.2 yards per pass attempt and a touchdown. He had an 89.3 quarterback efficiency rating. He had one carry, a scramble to the outside for a touchdown of 6 yards. And Judkins and Henderson did have good days. And Ohio State's long run was of 31s. They were consistently getting over 5 yards per pop. It wasn't like they had several, and by several I mean 2 or 3 like 75-yard runs and everything else sucked. It wasn't like Iowa's ground game, which I think is good, but it did get stonewalled outside of the big runs. That was not Ohio State at all. They did, Quinshon Judkins specifically had an 80-yard touchdown run that was called back for holding. So I think Ohio State looks way better than they did last week. I'm much more optimistic about this team, especially in regards to winning the Big Ten and beating Michigan after watching Oregon barely escape Boise State. Michigan does not look great whatsoever. Iowa lost. Nebraska in the first half looked good, but second half they didn't quit, but they really sputtered out and stalled. And then Penn State, I kind of think they had a flukish game against Bowling Green. After watching that, Bowling Green has, I think, a good quarterback, a great near elite QB for the group of 5 level, maybe even elite. And Harold Vannon Jr. is one of the best tight ends in the country, and he just happens to be at Bowling Green. And it was a little bit of a letdown spot. At least Penn State didn't do what Notre Dame did, and they lost at home to a MAC school. Penn State game controlled them in the second half and won. But then again, as I mentioned earlier, James Franklin is a Ryan Day problem. Day's never lost to him. So in regards to winning the Big Ten, Ohio State should be by miles the favorite. And ESPN's FBI says they have over a 50% chance right now of winning the conference. And look, again, this is Western Michigan. But the way that they game controlled them and gashed them and how they just did so much right. Fourth down efficiency. They had 6 penalties for 58 yards, but put up nearly 700 total yards, 30 first downs. The difference between Ohio State's yards per carry and Western Michigan's was a whole basically 18 feet per carry difference. That's insanity. You look at the passing numbers, it was about a difference of 7.8 yards. That's like 23, 24 feet. Crazy. Absolutely crazy per pass attempt difference. That's how dominant Ohio State was. I'm going to look up the points per play statistics because I guarantee you Ohio State's insane, not just in points per play margin, but in raw points per play as well. In points per play margin, Ohio State had a 0.767 points per play margin in their last game. That's absolutely crazy. And I know it's against a bad team in Western Michigan. Big Ten play will be much tougher. But the elite teams, it's like what I said about Alabama after week 1. That performance against Western Kentucky was awesome, even though it was a bad team. We'll have to see if Ohio State can consistently play at an efficiency level like this. Again, Big Ten play is going to be tougher. Like Michigan State, Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, Penn State, maybe Oregon if they get their D-line figured out. Those are 7 teams that will have great to elite defenses and anywhere in between. And you'll really test Ohio State there. In points per play, Ohio State, they average 0.767 points per play. That's that's crazy. That's just absolutely insane. They're only behind USC, Arizona, and Toledo in points per play. And I will tell you, Ohio State would beat all of those teams by anywhere from like 3-4 scores to maybe 70 points based off of what I've done in preseason research and what I have watched. Honestly, this is the best team in the Big Ten by a mile. They had nearly 10 yards per play and 8 touchdowns. Their backups got involved, and they got to rest their starters. I mean, this is what a elite team looks like. Total night and day performance difference from last week. Totally. Ohio State was good in the second half against Akron, but part of it was defensive touchdowns and the fact that Akron just got worn out. This game, from the jump, you could tell that the energy was different, that the team was different, the preparation was different. Howard looked way more comfortable in the offense. Jeremiah Smith has obviously emerged, I think, as Ohio State's wide receiver number 1. 5 receptions, 119 yards, over 20 yards per reception, and a touchdown. He's just so good, phenomenal as a freshman. And as I mentioned in some of my other videos, reacting to week 2, it's nice to see other talented true freshman receivers emerge and have big days. Like Nick Marsh had a really good day at Michigan State yesterday. Bryant Wesco had Clemson's first touchdown of the game, and it was a long one. Jeremiah Smith is clearly an all-American caliber wide receiver. It's impressive. And it's also impressive to see the dimes that Will Howard throws. He is as accurate as, like, at times. And again, we'll have to see how he's tested by road environments in the Big Ten and by defenses. But he is, like, at times as accurate as Steph Curry throwing the football. In this game, you saw that. Ohio State is the Big Ten's best. I've already said that several times, but I think it needs to be stated after this game. Who are you going to rank ahead of Ohio State? A USC? Michigan? Oregon? No. Get them away from Ohio State. They don't even belong in, like, the same tier, let alone 2 tiers. They're probably, like, to put this in terms of, like, statistics, like a whole standard deviation, if not more, away from Ohio State. That's how good the Buckeyes look through 2 weeks, and then you average that with their talent, their elite coaching. They're the class of the Big Ten right now, and I think the only team that you can look at their body of work and say, oh, well, they can beat Ohio State, in my mind, would be Penn State. Because Penn State has enough good play in the trenches and a elite enough staff with Andy Kotelnicki, with Tom Allen, with Chuck Losey, their strength and conditioning coach, with Cedar, their running back coach, Smith, their secondary coach, who I think will get things figured out after a rough game against Bowling Green with the DBs, and a great enough QB in Drew Aller to where I could see Penn State going punch for punch with Ohio State. But I could just see that. Right now, I would still view Ohio State as the better team. Penn State, outside of them, who's even close? They're clearly number 1, but is there even a number 2, number 3, number 4 who could compete with them? In the preseason, I thought that Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Oregon would all be within like a touchdown, if not a field goal, of each other. Right now, the only team who still fulfills that opinion of mine is Penn State. Penn State's within a touchdown of Ohio State in my mind. But Ohio State right now would burn through Oregon and Michigan, especially at home. But with Oregon, I think Oregon's trench play is questionable enough on both sides of the ball that regardless of where Ohio State would play them, they would just body slam them. The game between Michigan and Ohio State's a rivalry, so you never know. But with it being at home, And with how these teams have looked through 2 weeks, granted Michigan has played, I mean, Fresno State was probably better than any team Ohio State's played so far, though they didn't look so good. And Texas definitely was. From what I've watched for 2 weeks between the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes are beating the Wolverines by double digits, unless something changes, easily when they meet in Columbus for the final weekend of the regular season. This team is impressive. And if there's one team who has a shot to win it all from the Big Ten, unless USC is way better than I think they are, and I don't think they're elite or even near elite. In fact, they may not even be great. And unless Oregon really gets their act together. Oh, I forgot about Penn State, but you also got to remember James Franklin coaches Penn State. So, like, if they win a big game in the regular season, if they win the Big Ten, are they going to string together several more big game wins and win it all? Those 4 teams, I think there are paths for them to win it all too, but Ohio State clearly has the best chance to win it all and also the best chance to win the Big Ten. A good game from the Buckeyes, good game from Ryan Day. They have to focus on bigger and better things. They have a bye in week 3. Hopefully Donovan Jackson can get healthy and the rest of the team can stay healthy. Thank you all so much for watching this video. And almost forgot, just because of the fact that this game was so dominant, there honestly wasn't much to talk about because you can't even talk about Western Michigan. They were held to under 100 yards. Will Howard was the game's MVP in my mind. He was accurate. He was poised, looked like a veteran, looked better than I've ever seen him at Kansas State outside of maybe one of his 2022 performances. 18 of 26 for 292 yards and a touchdown. Also a touchdown on the ground and 6 rushing yards. He has had games that are spectacular before, so we'll see if he can stay consistent. But if Will Howard plays like this for the rest of the year, he's a top 15 QB. Could be top 10, as I think this is a down year in football. And Ohio State with a top 10 QB, improvements on the O-line, and with how good they are at running back, receiver, and defense, could very easily be the number team in the country. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this video down below. Thanks to Crash2488 and Brasco Rascal for being Heisman members. Thanks to Chris Lane, Connor Little OH, Ismar, and Tyler Nye for being All-American members. And thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janaisha Cockrell for being all-conference members. You can check out my Patreon page to support the channel via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you all again so much for watching. And you can also check out my merchandise store via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Have a phenomenal day, guys. Go Broncos, and more importantly, go Buckeyes.